Have you ever had a neighbor whose obsession with perfection ended up causing a catastrophe? Let me tell you about the day an overzealous HOA member's tiny act of vandalism unleashed a flood no one could have predicted. I've always loved my little corner of Cedar Creek Estates. For over 5 years, I'd enjoyed peaceful mornings, lush native gardens, and the satisfaction of a landscape I designed myself. But all that changed the moment Karen, yes, the infamous HOA Karen, stepped onto the scene. It all began at our annual winter board meeting. While most of us were content letting our lawns go dormant during the cooler months, Karen saw brown grass as an unforgivable offense. With a PowerPoint presentation filled with up-close shots of what she labeled unsightly neglect, she boldly declared, "Our community deserves perfection all year round." I tried to offer a friendly counterpoint, explaining that maintaining green grass in winter wasn't a sign of neglect, it was nature doing its thing. But Karen wouldn't have any of it. With a dismissive snap of her fingers, she shut me down, insisting that outdated HOA rules, written way back in the 80s, were non-negotiable. For months after that meeting, the tension simmered. I continued with my sustainable landscaping, installing native plant beds and a smart irrigation system designed to save water and support local wildlife. Meanwhile, Karen's passion for rigid lawn care morphed into an obsession. Every week, I'd receive citations for lawn violations, my native plant beds, my rain barrel system, which had been approved by the board, by the way, even for letting my sprinkler run at what she deemed unauthorized times. I tried to explain that my system adjusted automatically to weather conditions, optimizing water use without waste. But Karen's scowl always deepened whenever I mentioned sustainable practices. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a chilly late January afternoon when my smart irrigation system sent an alert, a sudden, unexplained drop in pressure from one of the zones. I assumed it was a minor glitch. That evening, after a long day at the office where I was reviewing plans for a city watershed project, I headed home, expecting nothing more than a quick fix. As I stepped into my front yard, I heard a strange sound, a series of snips, like the sharp cutting of garden shears. My heart pounded as I rushed across the lawn to find Karen, standing in my side yard with a pair of garden shears in hand. "Karen, what in the world are you doing?" I shouted, my voice trembling with disbelief. Without missing a beat, she replied coolly, "Your sprinkler system is running outside of approved hours. The HOA guidelines are clear on this." She held up a printed copy of an outdated rule, her eyes glinting with self-righteous determination. I tried to argue that my system's timing was set to maximize efficiency and conserve water, but she simply snapped, "Rules are rules." I grabbed my phone and started recording, hoping to document this overreach for evidence. "You can't just destroy my property," I protested. But Karen's expression was unwavering, as if she believed she was the sole guardian of our neighborhood's pristine appearance. With one final, decisive snip, she severed the main supply line of my sprinkler system. At that moment, I noticed something far more alarming. Water was gushing out of the cut line, not just trickling, but spewing out under full city pressure. The ground around the line began to saturate almost instantly. I could see puddles forming at a speed that defied logic. "Karen, stop!" I cried as I saw the water forcefully streaming toward the hillside that bordered my yard. Within minutes, what started as a malfunctioning sprinkler became a nightmare. The hillside, which I had spent years studying for its unique drainage patterns, began to show signs of distress. The saturated soil quickly turned into a slippery, unstable mess. I raced to call 911, while Karen's face, once filled with smug confidence, finally registered a flicker of concern. I remember the moment clearly. A deep, rumbling sound erupted as a section of the hillside began to collapse. Cracks snaked through the earth like a spider's web, and before we knew it, a portion of my yard was giving way beneath us. Emergency vehicles soon arrived, and the chaos unfolded in front of our eyes. Residents gathered, murmuring in shock as engineers and city officials assessed the damage. In the midst of the pandemonium, the city's chief civil engineer, a man I'd been collaborating with on sustainable water management, approached us. "This isn't just surface erosion," he explained gravely. "Something is very wrong with the soil composition here." I quickly pulled up some old development plans on my phone, and the revelation hit us all like a ton of bricks. The hillside, which should have been built on sturdy, clay-heavy soil to naturally slow water absorption, was instead built on cheap, improperly compacted fill. The developers had cut corners, falsified geological reports, and skimped on proper drainage, all to save a few bucks. And Karen, well, it turned out she wasn't just an overzealous board member. She had been part of that very development team, involved in the cover-up of those dangerous shortcuts. As the investigation deepened, more shocking details emerged. Neighbors recalled odd inconsistencies in the construction practices when the neighborhood was first developed. Dennis, a retired civil engineer and lifelong resident, produced decades-old documents that confirmed our worst suspicions. Essential drainage systems were missing, and the reports had been tampered with to hide the truth. Suddenly, Karen's crusade for perfect lawns wasn't about beautification at all. It was a desperate attempt to keep the truth buried. The disaster continued to unfold. The hillside's collapse wasn't an isolated incident. It threatened several nearby properties. The city ordered an immediate evacuation of the street. I stood there, feeling a mix of anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of vindication. My efforts to promote sustainable landscaping had not only been vindicated, but had also uncovered a massive scandal that implicated some of the most powerful figures in our community. In the days that followed, the full scale of the debacle became clear. Karen's actions had set off a domino effect that led to a statewide investigation into construction practices. Her role in the cover-up brought her under intense scrutiny. The state real estate board suspended her license pending a full investigation, and a full audit of every development in Cedar Creek was launched. At the next emergency community meeting, held in a local town hall that buzzed with anxious residents, the atmosphere was electric. The new HOA board, now determined to learn from our mistakes, announced sweeping changes. Our outdated landscaping guidelines were scrapped in favor of modern, environmentally friendly policies. Dennis, with his decades of expertise, was appointed to head a new environmental compliance committee. For the first time, our meetings focused not on trivial matters like lawn color, but on genuine community improvement and sustainable living. The aftermath of that fateful day brought unexpected silver linings. My smart irrigation system was repaired and upgraded to serve as a local monitoring station for the city's watershed management program. The once damaged hillside was re-engineered with native plants and proper drainage, transforming it into a demonstration garden that taught residents about water conservation and soil health. Even the once maligned native plant beds I'd cultivated became a model for eco-friendly landscaping across the county. Yet, as time passed and the neighborhood slowly healed, the memory of that chaotic day remained etched in our collective mind. Every time I walk by the reformed hillside or check my upgraded irrigation system, I'm reminded of how one impulsive act, not to mention a stubborn obsession with outdated rules, can set off a chain reaction with far-reaching consequences. Looking back, it's clear that corruption and corner-cutting in development not only jeopardize property values, but can also compromise the very safety of an entire community. And while Karen's misguided zeal initially wreaked havoc, it eventually forced us to confront uncomfortable truths and adopt practices that protect our environment and our homes. So, if there's one lesson to take away from this wild ride, it's that sustainable practices aren't just a trend, they're essential. And sometimes, the actions of one overzealous individual, no matter how destructive, can inadvertently pave the way for positive change.